Welcome back. Thank you all for coming back. This has been a really thought-provoking day so far, and I guarantee you will have way more creative and inspirational works to come. So thank you for coming this afternoon. We're going to get right going on it so that I don't cut into anybody's time. I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Slide, please. Camille Baker. Camille, come on up. And so we've got a slide for her, so we're going to give her a moment. There we go. Okay, so Camille's piece that she's going to be talking, or paper she's going to be talking about, is audience onboarding and offboarding for emotional VR storytelling. Camille is an interdisciplinary digital artist, curator, and researcher in immersive experiences. Welcome, Camille.
Is this on? Yes, yay. Okay, yes, I'm going to jump in as well. I prepared for 15 minutes, but I have 10, so I'm going to whiz through, and I might skip some things. But I'll just give you some context. I've made two installation VR and haptic works in the last 5 years. And prior to that, I've had a long history in digital art and various aspects of electronic and wearables and that kind of thing. So I won't get into my history, but I come to XR from a different place of performance and the physicality of digital mobile and wearable technologies, and came into it from a different place. I'm going to give you some background around this topic first, however. I've discovered this work, Larissa Whitaker's Onboarding, Offboarding in Virtual Reality, after I was already doing it, but it really helped make things slightly more succinct in my mind. And so I have text, but I'm going to try to summarize the text before I go into it. But she says basically when you're designing a work, for those of you who might be doing that, you need to think about these 5 aspects in terms of the audience experience: platform, place, user, genre, and time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover those briefly, but I'm also going to tell you how that works within the context of the work I've been making. So platform is really about the equipment, ultimately. What are you using, and how people can get into the experience through the technology. And so you want to think about how easy it is to use these kinds of technologies, but also what does it mean when you're using a Vive versus Oculus versus all these different platforms. The next one is place. Where are you doing this work? So is it in the home? Is it in a museum? And what kinds of, in my personal view, what kinds of safety measures are there? Because people have gone into VR experiences in museums, been given a headset and left on their own, and then they don't know what to do next. And so the context, this is really context. Where is it showing and what's happening there? The next one is genre. So what type of engagement is involved? Like, is it something that they have to do a lot of? Is it a game? Is it sitting in a chair and moving around? Is it, what do they have to do, and what kind of work is it? Is it training? There's a lot of XR work that's around training. Is it a movie in like 360? What is the genre? The next one is time. So what Larissa found, or what Larissa Whitaker found, was that time changes. Time is experienced very differently in VR. So sometimes it is really slow and seems to be going on forever. Other times, no time passes. For a quick example, and I'll get more into this later, but the work that I'm showing here is 23 minutes, but people come out saying, oh, I thought that was only 10. So the time really shifts and changes, and people feel like it's longer or it's shorter, depending on what the work is. Who are the users? Who are the audience members, participants? I really like the term immersants. A VR pioneer in this area in the 90s, Char Davies, used the word immersants, and I noticed a few people here and there are still using it, and I'd like to bring it back as well. But there are things that are happening in VR that people aren't used to, especially if they've never done VR before. So it might be too uncomfortable on their head, it might make them motion sick, it might be the content is too disturbing for them, depends on the work, or it requires something that they're not able to do in terms of accessibility. So understanding what people need, and a lot of times, again, as Larissa Whitaker found out in her research, that's not considered a lot in the design. It's like, here's the piece, now let people see it, and it's not considered in terms of how people are going to experience it physically, emotionally, all those other kinds of things. So, like I said, I prepared too many things. And so this is the idea of thinking about how you manage the experience. How is it being supported in the context of wherever it is, and how you bring people from the virtual from the physical into the virtual, and then back out of the virtual into the physical. So there's 2 points that she talks about. Management of equipment, who does that? Who's the persons who do that? And what is their role? How much information do they need to know? What happens if things break? And then how do they bring people into that experience? Yes, so I'm going to skip that. I have more time. That's okay, I'll get into my own background. So the first project I made in VR, after researching it from an external point of view, was this project called Into Her. And I showed a little bit about it, I think last year, around haptics. And it's going inside the female reproductive system in various different stages. It's not literal, it's not educational, it's very metaphorical and poetic, but you do hear real voices talking about their experiences. And I'll just run through it a little bit. It's talking about post-reproductive, it's not even post, reproductive diseases, fibroids, polyps, endometriosis, and cancers that are not normally talked about that much in society, especially with anyone else. Usually, maybe women will talk to each other, but that is not usually discussed. So we did this whole development about how do we bring people through the experience. This is from inside, but also from outside. How do they go through the experiences? What are they meant to experience at different points? How does that connect to, it's not on this chart, but how does that connect to the wearable that we're putting on them? How does that connect to the space? And I did this really rudimentary drawing when I started the process, but it's kind of still relevant, bringing people through. We made this, I'll show you more pictures. We made this tent. They come out and they spend some time talking to a guide. This is like really early on in the process. They have these very abstract flower kinds of images that are meant to represent their diseases, and there's a story from a real person talking about what happened to them in their treatment, etc. They go into the physical part is when we start, we bring them we invite them into a womb-like space, and they sit down on a small squashy pillow, and they're in a safe space, and then they start the experience. We have the haptic that we put on them before they go in, and so what the haptic is it's got vibration at different points on the lower abdomen, and it, depending on where in the body we're talking about, it vibrates at different points in the story. The next project, oh, did I show this one? Where is it? Yeah. So this is what it looked like from the outside. It was been touring for 2.5 years. And now I'm trying to connect it with healthcare professionals, maybe a scaled down version, not this big tent version, but definitely a way to explore gynecology clinicians and how they might work with patients in a more empathic way. New project this year with 2 other artists, Mammary Mountain. It's about the breast cancer treatment experience. And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, again, what we wanted to do, and part of that was doing a creativity workshop with breast cancer patients and trying to understand, give them something, a workshop around how to express their emotions, and then collect stories from them about their experiences. We have some images. Again, I'm not going to go through all this because this is a different talk, but very much thinking about what are people experiencing. This is in the, I brought it in the campus exhibition with the RCA, and if you're interested, you can come and see it. But we wanted to take people through this journey of very, very emotional, difficult topics. People don't always talk about what happened for them in their treatment, whether it be breast cancer or any other cancer. And we talk about diagnosis and then surgery and chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And all these are really, really tough topics. And so the point that we wanted to think about is how do we connect them back to their body, so another wearable garment that has vibration motors at different places in the upper abdomen and the back that are where the lymph nodes would be. So they're going to feel this, and so it's really important at the beginning of the process we tell them, you're going to have this really emotional journey, it will be triggering, and you're going to have this garment on you that's going to also be at different moments in the storytelling. And we dress people, we made some bespoke chairs, we dress people, and we bring them into, this is our first show, is in Dundee in Scotland. We've now been showing it in Venice, and they made us a bespoke clinical environment that terrifies people because they feel like they're actually going into a treatment. And that was kind of the idea, set people up into, go into the world physically and then go into the world mentally. I'm almost done. So I'll speed ahead. And just to say, we use same things, thinking about how help people use the controls, help them to think about how they're going into the world, think about the timing, and then think about how you train the invigilators. How do you tell them what to do, and how do they work with the technology, and how do they support each of the people who are experiencing this, and what do they say to them at different points, and what are the different things that might happen. So I'll just stop. I think that's it.
We have some time for questions. And we have students that are passing around microphones, so please raise your hand and a student will come and take your question. I'll get started, okay? I can imagine after going through a traumatic experience, knowing, not knowing whether you're going to live or die, right? That's about as traumatic as it gets. And then having to kind of relive it, but maybe in a different way. What kind of responses are you getting from the participants that are, the immersants that are in this space?
Yeah, so we got a lot of crying, but it's all quite good, actually. We had one woman in Dundee who came into the experience really angry and said, you know, I'm really angry with the healthcare system and this and this. And this is the part where we actually talk to them for 10 minutes after their experience. And that's a big part of what I'm talking about. It's really traumatic. Tissues are available, all those things. But she came out and she said, oh my God, I feel so much better now because I know that I'm not the worst. It's much worse for other people. So there's that sense of validation, sense of being seen. And so we get a lot of that, actually. A lot of people actually, instead of feeling, I mean, yes, some people who are re-traumatized sometimes don't do the whole experience. And Tara, whose story is the thread that goes through, she was re-traumatized making the work. But ultimately, it's cathartic from all the people we've talked to. It's cathartic. But we have to spend that time. We can't just go see ya. It's that really important kind of piece of caring, taking time. And okay, maybe there are some pieces that don't require that. If you see a VR piece that's not emotional, maybe it doesn't require that. But I think still the point of making sure that you train people who are helping people out of these experiences reconnect back to the world. If it is emotional storytelling, then it needs a little bit more.
Definitely. Very therapeutic for some. We have time for another question. And actually, if we could get our next speaker to get set up. Raywa?
Thank you. Hi, Camille. I just wanted to really give you some brilliant encouragement for your project. It's so important to draw visibility to what's going on with women's gynecology. We are still very marginalised, I think, despite being 50% of the population. Women's health is really marginalised overall, and I think, you know, there would be women in the room who've probably had traumatic healthcare experiences. I'm certainly one of them. So yeah, just thank you for advancing this field of study, and hopefully this kind of research is going to be beneficial to society for the future.
Yes, I hope so.
I second that. Thank you. Let's give her a big clap. Very, very important work. Our next speaker is Jinsil Seo, and I seem to be running into her in every conference I go to. I don't know if she's following me or not.
I'm following her.
She's going to be presenting Mosaic Immersions, Stacked Realities, Merging Physical and Virtual Experiences. Jinsil is an interactive artist and designer and researcher at Texas A&M. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm very excited to be... Hello. This is my first time in Ars Electronica, that's why. Nice to meet you. I'm very excited to be part of this expanded animation conference and also Ars Electronica. I'm from Texas A&M in the United States from the visualization program. Today I'm presenting a recent interactive installation that deals with augmented reality and multi-sensory experiences. This work was done with my former student, John Elbersy, as well as Wesley Taylor. These two images kind of showing, you know, that kind of core concept of core experiences of the project, a physical environment with physical props, as well as VR headset, and also augmented reality environment. So the people walking around the physical environment and then see the augmented contents. And then this augmented reality contents was recorded from a Meta Quest 3 headset. So I started this project from cultural and personal experiences from Korea. I grew up in Korea for many years, but now I'm in the States. So you probably have seen stacked rocks on hiking trails, like everywhere. It's not just in Korea, right? It's everywhere, and also like whole history. But having grown in a Buddhist family that hiked every week in Korea, and then stacking rocks has always been kind of meaningful and, you know, something special for me. So I started from that experience. In Korea, there are also multiple communal activities as well. One of them one of the famous thing is 탑제, ritual performing art done in 설날, in Korean Lunar New Year. And 탑제 is a community ceremony that where the villagers construct kind of conical stone stacks at the village entrance to pray on everyone's health and well-being. And then these traditions and demonstrates how the simple act of stacking stones can evolve the profound expression of faith and community and the human connection to the natural world, serving as tangible reminder of the power of collective, individual, and spiritual practices. So with that kind of background and foundation, I kind of started asking myself these questions. How might our sense of belonging change if we could see their trails of everyone's interaction layered in a shared immersive space? So really, like, people touch and then hug, and then all kinds of interaction. Can we see it after they, went through? And what if the emotions expressed through our touch could become visible, creating a shared visual language? How would collaboration evolve if the invisible energy we give and receive through touch could be captured and shared visually? But why hands? I've been, as an artist, hands also, pretty important for me and for all of us, I believe. I was always impressed by the role of hands in our bodies, especially expressive and communicative, also perceptive. You share your emotion through hands as well. I also really like the concept reciprocal relationship within the hands. So when you touch yourself, and then you being touched at the same time, right? So I really liked, giving and receiving and sharing information together. So the first project we did in 2006 from Simon Fraser University, collaborate with David and Diane Grumala. And at that time, we kind of captured hand movement of the audience members and then created kind of flying creatures. That was simple exercises, but it was very important or interesting for me to see how they kind of see their own hands from the third person's perspective. So kind of making the relationship, different relationship to their own body. The next project recently working on is similar concept, but we worked on a more complicated, more sophisticated creatures format. So the tree shape sometimes snakes and birds, and also audience members can put own characteristics and behaviors and emotions into their own characters and then displaying them in the virtual reality environment. And after that, the users using virtual reality headset and then kind of navigate around and see their creatures. They made it, but they own their own body. And also they kind of make their own world, their own community, and then they interact with other hands as well. So based on the concept, we designed the user experience in 3 main tasks. So the capturing hand movement is kind of sharing with previous projects as well. In this one, when people kind of stacked, rocks, they usually, many people usually kind of pray, right? Kind of pray something for their friends or their family themselves. So this time we recorded the story, to the virtual rocks, and then those are connected. So the rocks with the hand textures around with the story. And then that's been placed in the physical environment, the story, and then the rocks will be shared with other people. So this is the recording of the project. So this is a hand scanning or hand capturing box. It has a webcam inside. And also we provide the augmented reality interface introduction, what to do within the headset. And then once the hand motion captured, they talk about their story based on the prompt we provide.
It's a really hard time.
So sometimes, just ask them to tell your story, and then people don't know where to start, and then also people don't want to talk, right? So we provide the prompts, and then once it's generated, people can actually grab the virtual rocks, and they can hear what other people recorded and also their own story, and they can see the kind of like blinking, but they can see the hand motions around it. So we really wanted to kind of like generate the concept into the virtual world. They touched, and then their like trail, stays on the virtual rocks, and also it has their own story or prey. So the setup of the installation, as you saw from the beginning, it has main hand capturing box as well as props, also projection screens. In terms of technology system overview, it has 4 components: hand scanner with a webcam and desktop computer getting data from hand scanner. Also, headset is wireless, but wirelessly sending data, virtual, the hand scan data as well as wave file display within the headset. Also, we use photon fusion to record and store the virtual object's location. And then these are the examples of the captured images of their movements. And a lot of people actually kind of like play with some objects, not just their own hands, so like keychains and others. In terms of participants' experience, of course, rock generation was the most important and the core experience. People really liked it, and then people kind of tried to create multiple rocks in this space. In terms of recording stories, like sometimes people provided long, detailed personal stories, but sometimes like just testing, blah, blah, blah. And they don't really want to like leave their own personal stories in the public installation. And then stacking virtual rocks is a little challenging, dealing with virtual physics inside of VR. But when they actually made it stacked, they were very satisfied. This is an ongoing project. We're currently working on anonymizing the voice. This is an experimentation. We don't know it's going to work or not. But like hearing their own voice with their own story, maybe feeling just intimidating, right? So we like to change their voice to someone else's, like using AI. Also, we're providing alternative platform, for example, like web platform for browsing virtual rocks. Thank you so much. Any questions?
We have time for some questions. The afternoon crew is not so talkative. This morning they were asking lots of questions. So anybody? Some questions?
Yeah, very impressive project. How long did you take to create this
How
project?
long?
Yeah.
The first kind of prototype, first version we exhibited, it was about like 6 months. But also, I'm not only working for this, right, with all other jobs. So it took a little bit longer than, usual. But also, we've been kind of like, this project been evolving with different, components. For example, like, anonymizing the voice as well as, providing different interfaces. So it's an ongoing project. So it's been a year so far. Yeah. I hope we can finish sometime soon.
Another question back here. Could the students pass a microphone in the back? Does anybody have a mic back there? Okay, good. I don't have to jump over the camera.
Thank you. So your project contains a lot of user interaction and you gather data. Do you expect to work with those experiences that were shared as a separate art piece, or to evolve it further with those?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we'd like to create like another platform, like a web or something else. So based on the people's recorded like stories and a captured movement as well. Yeah. But we are not too sure, and it's kind of like the project's becoming bigger and bigger. So I don't know exactly what's gonna be as a separate installation. But also this installation, like kind of embodying that experience, putting your hand and capturing that, also part of the experience, right? So maybe if people see everything just on the web or just virtual reality, they kind of lose that like embodiment experience. So we're kind of like debating what we want. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the great presentation. Very interesting work. A question from more, well, I work in a more technical area, and I was wondering, do you evaluate the experience of the users in the installation in some way, like I don't know, some
That's a
user
great
experience?
Question. Yeah, for some other projects, I instead of evaluation, but I study user experience. That includes evaluation, analysis of their experience, right? But this one, I think it's still explorative. I'm a little sensitive about utilizing their own story and own, body data. So, like if we want to do study, we have to go through like, ethics, approval stuff, right? So we're working on it, and I'm not too sure, how I like to study. But definitely, I'm very, very interested in, like what that means, especially using AI voice, instead of using their own voice, like changing to AI and how they feel about it. Is it like do they still connected to that voice or not connected at all? So I think those are interesting research questions for me. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Great presentation. I have a question about how, can you talk a little bit more about how the rocks are being generated? And is it related anything to the text description they're describing the story?
Oh, that's a great point. So we had an intent to connect what they say and then what they see, right? But at this point, they're not connected. But it's on our list. One of them, we really want to try. In terms of rock generation, so currently we have a randomized like 50, 60 shapes, low poly rock shapes, and then it's randomly selected. And then these texts, the GIF file, and then we create actually pattern like this. So once we created a pattern, it wraps around the rock shape. So that's current process. But hopefully we can connect it to what they said, and maybe we can again like study, analyze like their story, and then try to find what's the relationship with what they did as well as what they said. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's give her a big clap. That was very interesting. Okay, let's get our next speaker up here while we'll get set up with the technology if they want to get that computer working. And is our next speaker here? Oh, nice to meet you. We have an intro screen, so I will wait till the introduction. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Vrääth Öhner. Vrääth. I was one. F-R-E-D. Okay, Fred. Fred will be talking about The Cage of Time. Fred is a film, media, and cultural scientist and researcher at St. Polten University of Applied Sciences. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the possibility to speak here. Before I start with my presentation, I would like to draw your attention to two not entirely insignificant absences. Firstly, Anna Vazov, the artist who is mostly responsible for the artwork that I'm presenting, cannot be with us today. She's still in Australia, no pun intended, really in Australia, where she is presenting another one of her works, and she won't be back until next week. Secondly, The Cage and the associated VR setup are also not on site. For one, because the presentation of an artist paper, according to the organizer's specifications, precludes the presentation of the artwork, and also because The Cage is currently on its way back from Sao Paulo, where it has been shown on the FILE International Electronic Language Festival for the past 2 months. The second absence is perhaps even more regrettable than the first, because the experience of the installation can only be described very incompletely in words or in 2D pictures. But to give you a first impression of what we are talking about here, I would like to show you a short trailer made by Anna Vasev. All right, this was the experience. I hope you can imagine that it's better if you have VR glasses on. Okay, let me start with a short introduction to what we do in this VR in motion context. We are mostly dealing with stop motion. Stop motion is an animation technique, as everybody knows, that involves capturing photographs of objects or characters frame by frame. When these frames are displayed one by one in sequence, they create the illusion of movement. VR in Motion, an art-based research project, combines various stop-motion techniques in VR setups. The project integrates artistic virtual experiences with philosophical, theoretical, and analytical concepts. Through 4 experimental workshops, the VR in Motion team collaborates with animation artists, collaborators, and students to expand artistic concepts of stop motion and motion capture in virtual and hybrid environments. The Cage of Time is the culmination of Experimotion 3, a collaboration with media and time-based artist Anna Vasev. The objectives of Experimotion 3 encompassed exploring the relationship between real-world objects and their virtual counterparts, as well as manipulating the space-time continuum within VR to explore the notions of space and time. The Cage of Time is a rotating object with a circular form featuring 16 clock pointers mounted on the bars of the cage in succession, reminiscent of a pre-cinematic device. The rotation of the clock pointers operates on similar principles as a pre-cinematic animation, but here the separation and succession of the frames occur digitally, resulting in a side effect, the fragmentation of the surrounding space. This affects the perception of continuity in VR media, multiplying the sense of spatial dislocation. This dislocation, combined with the impression of seemingly continuous time, calls our spatial existence into question, if we wear these headsets, of course. The object itself is a kinetic sculpture in the form of a bird cage. It continuously rotates the bottom part and produces sound. The bottom part is made of a drum cymbal transformed into a clock panel with Latin numbers. When it rotates, it hits the cage bars that move slightly and produce a metallic sound. Static clock pointers are mounted on each of the cage bars. In the middle of the cage, a 360 camera is mounted and constantly records the space surrounding the cage and sends the footage to a computer. With the help of software, it fragments the space and creates the animated illusion of the motion of the clock pointers. The audience can experience this illusion of time by wearing VR glasses. In other words, when exhibition visitors wear these glasses, they are teleported inside the cage, experiencing the space fragmented and simultaneously seeing the rotation of the clock pointers. The illusion of passing time in this project is literal, as we use stop motion to achieve it, and as a result, we fragment the continuous perception of space. By closing one eye, the audience can interrupt the illusion of time and restore the feeling of continuous space and duration. A microphone from inside the cage also transfers the sound in the room, the sound that is present in the room. With the help of software, the sound is also slightly manipulated, amplifying the claustrophobic and dizzy feeling of the cage of time. Thomas Edison's kinetoscope can be seen as a precursor to current VR technologies. This device created the illusion of movement for only one viewer at a time. Similarly, okay, 3 minutes? I'm already at the end. I don't give too much insight into the technique of Edison's kinetoscope. Similarly, current VR technologies are also designed for individual experiences, although we don't describe them as displays of the illusion of movement, but as VR because of their immersive nature. The immersive nature of these devices is both their strength and their curse, as not many people are in everyday contact with VR storytelling. The immersive effect often dominates the narrative of the images they display. In this sense, the current situation is somehow or somewhat reminiscent of the early cinema of attractions, when cinema was still searching for its dominant narrative forms and the artistic possibilities derived from them. The Cage of Time is not an answer to the situation. Instead, it invites us to reflect on it. Thanks for your attention.
Very interesting project. Do we have some questions? If you've studied the history of animation, you should have a million questions, right? We all want to get in that headset and experience it. Yeah. When you showed the video, I have to say I got very disoriented. Now, is that the experience that people go through when they're in there? And so they not only space and time, but their equilibrium, their balance.
Yeah, it's a, how can I say it? It's a very unerwartet, unexpected experience that you can make there. You see this very simple object in a room, which makes some noise, and you say, okay, this is mildly interesting. And then someone comes and gives you VR glasses, and suddenly you are inside the cage, and the world is rotating very fast around you. And many people who tried it out, they immediately got shaky or wanted to sit down, and so. And then later, with this experience, we later offered people a chair when they put on the glasses.
Do we have a question? Yes.
One, at least.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. I was wondering about, like closing one eye kind of breaks the illusion.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like closing one eye means like you focus, like more, right? So I was wondering, like, what's the relationship closing eye and the breaking illusion?
We only needed a switch. That's the only thing that is important about closing one eye. And Anna was never really satisfied with this solution, because she said this will not get clear through the object. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to say it, or we have to put an insert somewhere. You can stop the rotation of the world, or of the clock pointers anyway, only by closing one eye. So that's one of the downsides, or one thing that we didn't get a better solution for in the short time that we worked with Anna.
Thank you.
We actually have a few more minutes for questions. Some more questions?
I was very fast, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for this talk. So you told it was a physically not pleasant experience for the audience, for the users. So maybe my question is, how painful you would like it to be for the visitors?
No, this was not intended, because part of the remediation of early cinema or pre-cinematic devices, which was a starting point for Anna to think about virtual reality was fairground attractions. And I think this cage is some kind of fairground attraction. And I think it's similar than on fairgrounds. Some people enjoy roller coaster rides, and some are terrified by it. And we didn't want the audience to get seasick or something like that. But it happened because it was really fast. So we could, of course, adjust the speed of the movement, but then the clock pointers wouldn't rotate in the way that we want to. So, yeah.
I found it kind of interesting because I teach the history of animation that you placed, for me anyway, it seemed like I was placed in a completely different perspective than I've ever taught these objects. So they are projecting the image, we're seeing them come together as a single image in motion. And now you put me inside of that device, and so I really get that physicality of what's happening with the spinning a lot more. Was that part of her concept? She was thinking of repositioning the viewer?
Yeah, of course. And also the possibility to see oneself wearing the glasses and standing outside of the cage. But because the space is fragmented, it could happen that you don't see yourself at all, or only parts of yourself. But yeah, you would immediately recognize you, of course. And if you play around a little, and we had some space situations where the cage was hanging in a very large room, where we could freely walk around without bumping into obstacles. And then we told people, go more to the cage, in the direction of the cage, then you can see yourself and can think about more about it.
Well, I wish the cage was here. We could all experience it. I guess we have to catch it on.
The cage is on its way, but
okay,
no further exhibitions are scheduled at the moment.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Vinaya. You want to come up and get set up? Is Vinaya here? Oh, okay, come on up. Vinaya Tawde will talk about using mobile augmented reality for making gameplay immersive and engaging. She's pursuing her PhD at Mosaic University, focusing on mobile AR games for mental health. Welcome.
Hi. So I'll be speaking about mobile augmented reality, and thanks to Jinsil, who spoke about augmented reality, I'll probably focus more about gaming and the other aspects. So just a little bit about me. I've been using different kinds of technology to see how immersive and engaging can gameplay be. So a little about mobile augmented reality games. As we all know, augmented reality is around us, and it combines physical and digital world. There's also something really exciting about mobile games. That is, we all have cameras and we all have phones, and it's so extremely accessible. We have different aspects of our lives that we rely heavily on mobile phones. And ever since COVID-19, using games for entertainment and other purposes has massively increased, which led to a lot of my research motivation of combining mobile AR and games to see how engaging and immersive it can be. Just a little bit about related work from the existing literature. There is a lot of literature available that speaks about different aspects of human-computer interaction. So a lot about things like presence, immersion, and engagement, embodiment, using spatial awareness, and also the focus on player experience. So there's a lot of information about different aspects of HCI principles. You might even know about Pokemon Go, which really changed the way that AR has experienced in this world. So, like I said, my research motivation heavily relies on using engagement and immersion and seeing how immersive and engaging can mobile AR really get, and what is the potential of it. So, speaking about the Fury of the Red Black Tree, which is a research prototype that was developed with my student and my supervisor, who's also here. The whole point of using FORP was really to see how engaging and interacting can AR really get. So the whole purpose of this game is you see the tree, which you sort of place in the real world, and the tree is really furious, so it throws different kinds of these red color balls at you, and you as a user are the blue ball, and you have to sort of navigate around your spatial environment and try to escape from these balls. The whole reason why we created this game was actually to understand how aware are you about your spatial surrounding when you are using AR. Now, this has been a conversation for a really long time about making things engaging, making things really immersive. And there was something very interesting that we actually understood. We really made this game engaging when we tried to do a user testing with a lot of children and a lot of people who tried to use our prototype. They were extremely engaged to a point where they wanted to try it in different areas. So like the outside, around in the parks, inside the physical indoor environments. And their motivation was also physical activity, which was something that we sort of had a good help in. Now, there was one important, really important problem that we realized when we user test this game. While we did want to have a lot of engagement and immersion, what really happened is the users were really engaged, which caused a lot of issues in their spatial awareness. There were times where they were moving around and hitting things, or they were sort of stumbling across objects around, which we didn't want, which helped us to understand that we've made this game really immersive. We sort of hit our research goal, but that's not what we wanted for the users. We didn't want them to be so misaligned with the physical world. There was also an issue with some users being extremely bored of the game because it was too easy for them. And at the same time, some users had so much anxiety because it was so difficult. They just couldn't navigate, they just couldn't play it well. So these were another two things that really helped us understand how while there is a lot of potential in mobile augmented reality games, it also comes with a lot of risks that need to be spoken about and considered when you're designing or using augmented reality. So just to sort of conclude everything that I said, everything that we learned from this research prototype, which was to discover about spatial awareness and to create something that was engaging and immersive, we realized that engagement and immersion can be principal aspects of primary goals when designing for mobile augmented reality games. While we do have mobile phones that are so accessible, and in terms of user experience, we really know how to use them. It's not like you need to learn something new because you're navigating and using it almost like 6-8 hours in the day. It was really important to understand how much of immersion is good immersion, how much of engagement is good engagement. And the whole point is to sort of relook at these two aspects of gameplay and then amplify and responsibly use them while designing mobile augmented reality games. So speaking about also future work, which is future is now because we are already working on it, we are presenting this prototype called Roo. Roo is called, it means soul, aligning with your soul, which is what the research prototype is. It uses mobile augmented reality, which is another prototype that we're currently developing, to use the right amount, or figure out the right amount of engagement. And along with this, we're trying to use tangible, interactive markers. So this game is really designed for children between 10 to 14-year-olds, and we're trying to see whether Lego blocks or like puzzle pieces or paper and pen even as an engagement tool can be used to amplify and sort of balance this engagement and help better align a physical and a digital world. Like I said, augmented reality sort of blends in these two worlds. So we want to now create some sort of a balance where not only are you related with your digital world through your phone, you also have an opportunity of putting this phone down and interacting with like tangible objects and doing something in the physical world, aligning with it, and then going back to the physical world to keep getting rewards and play the game. So this really concludes my talk. And if you would be interested to be a part of my research study, we are here. So thank you.
Thank you. We have some time for questions. Does anybody have a question? I'll get started, but you think of your question while I start. My question is, you're using AR, and it seems like with the example that you worked on, there was a tree that was throwing balls at you, right? Mm-hmm. How does the real world factor into not only your research, but that particular game? So could I have the same exact experience without it being AR? It's just a game on my phone. Or does the real world factor in an important way?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question, because what you really do in the game is use a digital tree that you place in the real world, and you can only see this tree through your mobile phone. So the whole background is really the physical environment. The moment you move the camera, everything changes. So this creates, well, immense amount of engagement, because your background is continuously changing, and while the tree is there, it keeps changing, and it sort of creates an immersion into the game without you sort of wearing an external device. And because you're so caught up with your phone, you sort of keep experiencing the transition of the background while the physical tree keeps throwing balls at you. And at the same time, you're also trying to sort of escape these balls because you don't want to die or like not lose in the game.
Okay, some more questions. Anybody else? So I'm curious, the feedback that you've received from people playing this game. You observed that some people get very anxious and some people are totally bored. But in general, do they not notice the real world as much as the balls? I mean, that is definitely focused attention. But what kind of feedback are you getting?
So I think there are probably two aspects to these through the feedback. The first one is, I think color psychology plays a very important role when you're designing any sort of thing, right? And red is very an obvious choice of a trigger of a certain emotion. We decided to use the red balls to see how triggering can this color get. For some of the users, this color was very engaging because they knew that they had to escape it. So it was an attention-grabbing sort of key element. But at the same time, for some users, because there was so much red on the screen, that was a cause of trigger, which sort of stopped them from playing. And the more levels you advance in the game, the balls keep getting more and more, and there's more percentage of that color on the screen. So it can just trigger sort of an emotion.
Yeah, that's really important to bring in the elements of art and design, you know, the psychology of color. Fascinating. Any last questions before we go to our last speaker of the day? Okay, let's give her a big clap. Awesome research. Okay, we'll get our last speaker setting up. I would like to introduce Xiruo Wang. Xiruo is going to talk about constructing virtual narrative environments, a surrealist exploration of the 17th century European Oriental fantasies. Xiruo's a level artist at NetEase Games, so she's immersed in the immersion world, right? Yeah. Thank you, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm Xiruo Wang, and today I'm happy to share my final student project at UCL. I graduated last year where I focus on VR interactive games. Currently, I work at NetEase Games as a level artist, where I'm responsible for 3D environment art and interactive design of game level. This paper aims to construct interactive narratives in VR that integrate multiple art forms and explore diverse historic and cultural context. It tells the process of creating a VR space that includes context-specific worldview, interactive elements, and 3D art, all decided to recreate 17th century European fascination with the distance and mysterious orient. And this project is inspired by an illustration from China Illustrator, a work by Kitcher. The account includes descriptions of landing cells, coaches, luring beauties, flying turtles, and the fluence of image proportions. Those illustrations were considered the most comprehensive visual representation of China at the time. But also, Kitcher never visited China. His work became one of the most significant sources of information about China for Europeans at that area. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the cultures, art, and philosophies of East regions began to attract widespread interest in emulation in Europe. As more information for the East reached the West, many European scholars often have never been to the Orient, embarked on studies that focus primarily on the idealized vision of China. This area of Oriental fantasies appears to be driven not only by cultural exchange, but also by a pursuit of the unknown, the exotic, and the mysterious. They will gain insight into how 17th century Europeans, they will gain insight into how 17th century Europeans perceived China within the imaginative works. This setting represents of the West's interpretation and definition of Chinese culture within the specific cultural context. And this cross-cultural perspective is inspired by the Chinese point, 卞之琳 point fragment. You're standing on a bridge enjoying the view, someone's watching you from a balcony. The moon adores your window, you adore someone else's dream. Guided by this point, the study draws on the multiply association, finding surrealist arts to explore the intricate relationship and interconnections between the individual and the environment. The suggestive interactive elements in VR enable players to explore the amplify the subconscious thought and experience. The worldview depicted in the project in this metaphor centered around two core elements, the moon and the window. By enhancing the dynamic interplay between those suggestive elements, the project encouraged players to engage the imagination in interpreting the deeper meanings and significance of the virtual environment. And the movelit window explores the The movelit window explores the interaction between the moon and the window, driving the narrative source connection of various-later and environment interaction. The project features two primary interactive mechanisms, controlling the moon rotation and light the window and connecting Chinese Manchu characters to alter the environment. This is early prototype of Rain. And the rotation angle sensor data from the Arduino is transmitted to the move in Unity to test the functional. And the next version for the array was built using Lego bricks with the handle and the sensor assembled together. At this stage, player can physically rotate the move while controlling the move within the VR environment. As the move passed through the window during the process, it projects light and simulates the light effect. The visual feedback activates things outside the window, enabling players to traverse different environments. And this version was exhibited at 2023 Ars Electronica of UCL campus. And based on that and improved vision featuring enhanced gesture and physical device interaction was exhibited at EGX 2023 in London last October. This is the final Oreo craft using laser cutting and wood and 3D printed component. I utilized Arduino sensor to detect the rotate angle of the moon, and this data is transmitted to the Oculus headset for real-time interaction. This is a video to show the last version. And the final version utilizes hand tracking technology to provide players with a controller-free interactive experience, allowing them to directly manipulate objects in both virtual and physical space. This means the players can use the hands to touch and grasp virtual objects and change the virtual environments by controlling the physical array. And the movelit window offered players an immersive watercolor styles visual experience, employing the stylized visual effect to transport them to a period of East-West exchange. The virtual world is built using Unity, integrating 3D models with watercolor shaders and 2D decals to create the environment. The scenes embrace the typical college style of surrealist art, constructing an immersive 3D college space of China that aligns with the project's historic context. The players can explore hidden tea-related puzzles in the ancient China trade port. The project presents surrealist artistic scenes of Qing Dynasty Guangzhou port and town, including docks, street, shop, and temple and shape carvings. The principle of surrealist aesthetic and presentative works offer surrealistic support and artistic reference for the development of virtual reality space, aligning with the concept of automatism and subversion. By integrating elements that encourage suggestive interaction with virtual reality environments, players can, empowered by activity, explore and engage with the elements. This interaction leads to creation of unconscious compositions through the interconnection of simple, abstract visual components and poster-multiply association. That's all. Thank you so much.
We have time for questions. Questions, here we go.
Thanks very much for your project. This looks very beautiful.
Thank you.
I have sort of two related questions. One is about the term surrealism and how you are activating it here. And then the other is about the fact that you're describing this as this kind of Orientalist fantasy, but at the same time you're invoking it in the way that you do your design. So can you talk about the sort of critical perspective of the project and how you see your aesthetic choices relating to what you're trying to convey with the project?
Oh, okay. I choose the surrealism to combine with the 17th centuries that's about Orient history because in a Chinese perspective, this history is very interesting and have some magic from our things because I know in that area in the Western they think that China is very incredible. I think so. This history is I think is very suitable to present by the surrealist art because they, such as the college art, is very colorful and is different with reality. So I think use these art forms to show that maybe we'll give the player new experience and to know this history. Thank you. And I will do more research about this and to read more theory to combine this history. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have specific artists that you were influenced by?
Actually,
it's okay if you can't think about it, because I know you must be very nervous up there. Other questions about the work? I really like the flip book aesthetic. Okay, so not flip book in the animation sensibility, but you're flipping the pages, and I saw something sort of appear three-dimensional out of the book.
Yeah.
And so...
Like this?
Yeah, earlier.
More earlier.
Where it felt like something emerged from the book. It was one of your earlier ones. Oh. So where did you actually come up with this idea about using a book to get to this sort of exploration?
Because this is a VR game and I
Right there, that's the one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because this is my last year project, but that time the Apple Vision is not show the public, so I just use the hand gesture to interact in the game, use the Oculus, and I really want to give player a totally hand gesture experience, just not controller, just use your hand, and maybe it will give them more immersive experience in the interaction with the VR space. Yeah.
Okay, any last questions? Okay. Oh, another question back here.
Test. Yeah. I'd like to expand on this question over here about the let's call it the European gaze or the Western gaze. Were there any difficulties or any clashes between ideas, or did you have any difficulty not slipping into stereotypes?
I think I have many difficult times about this project because to read the theoretic is not easy for me, and so I think I should focus on more thought and methods on the art forms, like such as the visual effects and 3D environment, and how to show the visual themes to the players, because I think the player didn't want to know the theoretic and themes in the game. Maybe they more want to get directly feedback in the visual environment. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Tomorrow we get started at 11 o'clock. So have fun tonight. There's a lot to see, a lot to do. And we'll see you back here at 11 o'clock. Let's give her a big clap.
Thank you.
We commend students for being so brave to stand in front of us, and thank you so much for being that brave. Okay.